Hello and welcome to another food demonstration for our Saturday wine program. I had quite a bit of fun noodling a little bit on an idea for a pairing with the wines that Chris and I presented last night. And we have two more very wonderful wines, these two from the south of France, coming up this coming Saturday night, which is April 25th. We will be presenting one very terrific rosé from a part of the southern French coast, the Mediterranean coast, called Cassis, little village called Cassis. And then following that rosé, we will be moving to Bordeaux and presenting what I am anticipating is going to be the great 2016 Margaux from Chateau Moulin de Tricot. And I've been thinking a little bit about what to make for food for these wines, and have zeroed in spite of how much I love the food that comes out of, for instance, Marseille and the French Riviera and things like beautiful seafood and fresh vegetables. I was thinking about a crudité with maybe or the famous bouillabaisse with aioli in the middle of it. The aioli, of course, is also great with fresh vegetables or blanched vegetables. In any case, because it is still cool in San Francisco, and because I am yearning for something rich and satisfying to eat with a beautiful glass of Bordeaux, I have proceeded down a path to a dish that maybe would be referred to as a mock cassoulet. Some of you are probably familiar with the dish cassoulet, which is famously comprised of beans and meat. This is something that the Bordeaux region is very famous for. Over the years, I have come to think of cassoulet as kind of the perfect food to eat with a really good Bordeaux, young, old, any age. Cassoulet is something that requires, really to do it right, it requires quite a bit of time, and I thought I would present you here in this early evening with a kind of mock cassoulet. It's cassoulet light, but I'll show you maybe some of the basic components so far as I'm concerned. Of course, cassoulet starts with the beans. You have to be working with terrific beans. They have to be cooked the right way. They have to be seasoned the right way. And it is my great pleasure now to tell you about the very deep affinity that I have for dried beans. Fresh beans are completely wonderful if you can get them, but dried beans I think should be a staple of every kitchen. They are incredibly delicious. They're really good for you. They are not the least bit perishable, so they last forever. So they're really something that that people should have. You're probably familiar with this company called Rancho Gordo, which is this magnificent Napa-based bean company. They present all kinds of wonderful beans, black beans, pinto beans, and then quite a number of beans that are a little bit more obscure. This bean is called a Marcella bean. It is I would say an amply sized white bean. It says on the package, a delicate cannellini bean grown in California from Italian Serrana seed, a light and creamy bean with the thinnest of skins, cooked very gently, low and slow. And about this, I would say absolutely correct. I was astonished at how quickly these beans went from being al dente to a little bit underdone to being done. I mean, it happened quickly. Black beans, by contrast, you can really cook and let them simmer for quite a long time, and you don't have to get there in exactly the right instant. With these beans, I felt like you had to get there in exactly the right instant. So these were just cooked off a little bit earlier today. These are very, very beautiful white Marcella beans from Rancho Gordo that were cooked with a half an onion, a couple of carrots, and a few bay leaves, and then seasoned with a little bit of salt at the end. And they are currently sitting in something that some of my colleagues over the years in kitchens have referred to as bean liquor. Bean liquor is the liquid that comes from the beans as they're cooking with those aromatics, the carrot or the onion or the bay leaves, or sometimes people put some peppercorns in, or they put some garlic cloves in, or all different kinds of things, right? So those beans are fully cooked, and they are now sitting in their own liquid, and they have cooled a little bit. This is some Merguez sausage. right, loose merguez sausage. Merguez sausage is classically ground lamb, and also classically, in addition to garlic and other flavorings and spices, I think the most important component in merguez sausage is paprika. A very nice kind of mildly spicy, rich sausage. This is about a third of a cup or so of coarsely chopped onion that I've put a little bit of color on, so those are sauteed and ready to go. This is a very magnificent mustard, Dijon mustard that I've been working with lately, that I completely adore. I'm a big fan of Dijon mustard, and I have rarely tasted Dijon mustard as good as this. This is white wine, freshly pulled Dijon mustard from Mai. This is the very, very beautiful herb that is called tarragon. Sometimes I'm reminded a little bit of herbs in the spring, especially tarragon, which to me has some kind of lovely sort of fresh quality to it. I also, a number of years ago, had a really great white bean dish with some tarragon in it and was really struck by how well they went together. This is a piece of Parmesan cheese that I'm going to use at the very end to grate over the top. And then this is just a scintillating 2016 Chateau Le Puy, a wine. As I say, we don't, I think you know this, we don't taste the wine. So the 16 Margaux that we are tasting this coming Saturday, Chris and I have not tasted yet. Of course, I would not be drinking that wine now because I have to abide by the rules, but I am dipping into this magnificent 16 Le Puy, which I think will do actually with the merguez sausage in particular, will be just perfect. So pour myself a little splash of that, and then I am ready to go. The key part of this, cooking sausage is not very difficult. The key part of this is cooking the beans and flavoring the beans, and that's kind of what I want to cover here, just in case there are any of you out there that feel like they have a couple things more to know. One other really important ingredient that I left out is really good olive oil. That is going to be indispensable in this. So I'm going to start by firing up the pan and dropping the sausage. Sausage doesn't matter whether it has a casing on it or not. Sausage meat is something that we enjoy making at the restaurant. We basically build our own recipes of saying, maybe this would have a little coriander in it, or this needs a little bit of nutmeg, or those kinds of conversations. Sausage is a really wonderful thing. I think sometimes I actually think it's the best that meat can possibly be, because you're introducing all of these other flavorings and seasonings. In any case, here we go to the stove. Just a bit of oil. Actually, the pan already has some oil in it because I was cooking those onions in it earlier. And I'm going to take the merguez sausage and just drop it into the pan in little pieces. Merguez sausage, or any kind of sausage for that matter, of course, like all kinds of different meats, freezes particularly well. This merguez came out of the freezer early this morning and began to thaw a little bit. So now all of that sausage is in the pan. Probably that weighs maybe 4 ounces. It's about 4 ounces of sausage, which in my world, because I don't typically eat a ton of meat, 2 or 3 ounces very often can qualify, especially with some lovely beans or other accoutrement, as a portion. So I would say that little bit of sausage that I was just holding, I would count as 2 portions, These little bits of meat obviously don't take a very long time to cook. They pick up a little bit of color. It's exactly what we want from them. It has some seasoning. I'll add a little bit. And then we'll get into making the beans. And there are a couple of ideas that I want to point out while that sausage is cooking that are really, really important to the making of the beans. One of them, and maybe most importantly, is we are going to use this method that involves smashing the beans against the side of the pan. Sometimes in professional kitchens, you'll take a certain proportion of beans out of a stock pot or a pan and actually puree them, and then reintroduce that puree to the beans that are already cooking in an effort to create this thicker kind of bean broth, you know, that the beans are sitting in. Almost fully cooked in there. So that's what we're going to be doing. We are going to drop the beans and smash some of them so as to cream them up a little bit with the help of the mustard and with the help of the olive oil. We're going to create a nice, rich, sort of silky textured little bowl of hot beans. The second thing that I want to mention, our sausage is already completely cooked, and I'm going to decant the sausage. People use the word decant in the world of wine to talk about pouring the wine out of the bottle, you know, separating the wine from the bottle. In this case, I'm decanting the meat out of the pan, same thing. We don't need all this fat that came from the sausage. I'll dump that. And then I want to show you this pan, which has all of these beautiful caramelized bits, you know, that came. So in there's a little bit of lamb fat. Lamb doesn't have a huge amount of fat, but there's some lamb fat in here. Little bits of caramelized meat, and then there's some of that paprika that got cooked on. So this is just quite a bit of flavor in here, as you know, anybody who's ever watched the French cooking show knows about deglazing, and that's what we're about to do. The pan now has all of the drippings from the meat, and we're going to now deglaze it and work the beans into the very same pan, right? We'll put that back on the fire. I'm going to drop these onions. The pan, of course, is still very hot. Now the onions are picking up some of that flavor from the meat. I'm going to let that pan get really nice and hot, and then I'm going to dump the beans with their bean liquor into this, and actually, just for good measure, as this pan is getting really hot, maybe it'll take a splash of Bordeaux. I've got a little splash of Bordeaux in there now. It's going to add significantly to the flavor of this thing. And then I'm going to drop these beans in, which I say are al dente. They could go a little bit further, but right now they're going to get a little bit further in this hot pan. I'm going to let that heat up a little bit, and then I am going to use my last couple of ingredients here. Just about a half a teaspoon probably of Dijon mustard. I love this stuff, I don't know if I mentioned. The mustard goes in. We're going to add a little bit more olive oil. Oh, that mustard is so strong, so delicious. A little bit of salt, some cracked pepper. Right, and the beans are now starting to come up to temperature a little bit. Everything's getting hot in here. And I'm going into my mashing program. Turning these beans into a little bit of a puree and creating a kind of a rustic texture. So some of the beans, of course, will remain whole, and then there will be lots of other little pieces of beans in here that are contributing to texturizing the rest of this dish. And then at the very end, because herbs don't like to be overcooked, I'm just going to add this pinch of chopped tarragon. Man, this is starting to smell pretty good. We'll give this a little taste. I should point out that at this moment, this is 100% vegetarian. Not lacking in flavor between the oil and the mustard and the onions, and actually it's not entirely vegetarian because the meat was cooked in the same pan, but it could have been. It could have been completely vegetarian. I'll bring this over to you to show you how these beans look. A little bit of tarragon, some of that caramelized onion, that Bordeaux. And then just make a mini bowl here to show you. Just grated a little of that fresh Parmesan, and that is a bowl of beans with a little Merguez sausage and fresh grated Parmesan. And if you should be interested to prepare this before tasting that 2016 Margot from Moulin de Tricot this coming Saturday, I think you'll be happy with it. I will also mention, while I have you and have this moment, for those of you who love white wine, we are going to be leading a seminar on April 29th, which is a Wednesday, with 3 unbelievably great, monumental, spectacular French white wines. A Foro Vouvray, a Bitezé Prieur Bourgogne Blanc, and a great white wine from the Jura made by Joseph Dorbonne. That's happening on April 29th. All information at SaturdayWine.com. Thanks for watching and enjoy your Sunday evening. Take care. Bye.